The Stanley Cup playoffs continue, and for the Winnipeg Jets, the only way they're going to continue for the next little while is if they stepped up last night. And boy, did they, as they pick up a 5-3 win over the St. Louis Blues in a game that they absolutely had to have. And quite frankly, for most of them, it was a performance that they absolutely had to have. Look, Scheifele has been excellent in this series. Now there's some concern because he plays 8 minutes, gets absolutely railroaded by Braden Shen, and then doesn't come back. So no update on his status, and it's this time of year. So that's going to probably be a consistent theme until the game that they play coming up tomorrow. But that would be a really tough loss for them because his playmaking is just on full display. And out here in Calgary, I was on Sportsnet 960 last Friday, and one of the texters asked a question, who is the most underrated player in all of sports? And honestly, now thinking about it, I think Scheifele could definitely fall into that category because I just don't think people appreciate the elite level of talent that this guy has. Like, he is, I think, a really good offensive player, and his playmaking is just, it is marvelous. Some of the passes that he is able to make. And look, like, a lot of times it's not just like oh wow, he somehow pinballed it through 5 guys and it got to the front of the net, but it's just the quick decisions. It is the puck is in the perfect place always, and it sets up Connor for that first goal, and it is coming off of winning a lot of battles along the wall, and that's where Winnipeg, I think, really showed their true colors in this game. This is a different team than Winnipeg teams we have seen in the past, but I guess the identity of this Winnipeg Jets team is always, we're going to be tough to play against. And I think sometimes you can look at, Scheifele to a certain degree, Connor, Ehlers, Perfetti, some of them, like they're not, this isn't Dustin Byfuglien and Blake Wheeler running over people or something like that, but it is those plays along the wall that they are able to create offense off of very quickly. And you saw it in that game. Suter, I thought, had a tough one. And the play behind the net on the first goal, Appleton gets clipped by something. He believes it's a high stick. St. Louis disagrees, and the referee agrees with St. Louis. But as Appleton is slowly getting up and kind of grabbing at his face here, as he's grabbing at his face, Suter gives him an extra shot. The problem is the puck's behind Suter, and then it's to an angle just kind of to his 3 o'clock, and then it's right beside him because it went in the back of the net. And he had a couple that he got beat on. Appleton beat him in the corner on the second goal as well, maybe third. Either way, Appleton beat him in the corner. That helped set up another goal. So Suter had a bit of a rough night, but it is off of a board battle. Scheifele gets it, and a lot of times, I think when we talk about like, oh, he won this board battle, it is with brute strength or whatever. You can use talent in those ones as well. And his hands, and again, the playmaking ability, his vision of the ice, and just his instincts in general. He gets the puck. It is off his stick so quick. And now Suter again has taken a guy behind the net. You have a forward who has lost the battle in front. Texier has lost Connor, who does a really good job of getting to an open area. A lot of times you just want to get like right front of the net. He takes a bit of half of a step back. Now he's open for a shot, and now it's in the back of the net. So just a brilliant setup, and something that they will really, really miss if Scheifele is out of the lineup. But when he does exit the lineup, enters, I guess, the third line. They were brilliant in this game for Winnipeg. And I have said this is the best third line in the NHL. And it was one of the reasons why I was talking about Winnipeg kind of needing to go get that second line center. Because if you can lock up, like that top line is going to be good. You know, like Scheifele, Connor, and whoever. If you can get that second line a real legitimate center, and then you can roll with a bottom 6 with Lowry, Nemesnikov, Niederreiter, and Appleton. Like that is depth that few teams are able to put out there at this point in the National Hockey League in this era, with a lot of stars taking up a lot of the salary cap. And so that line just completely controlled things for them. Like I said, I thought Appleton was great. Lowry was really good. Nemesnikov was fantastic. The speed that he still has and the finishing ability that he has as well to be able to put things away. I loved what I saw from Winnipeg in this game. So I just think like that third line is enough that, like, obviously the high-end talent on St. Louis is there. Kyrou, Thomas. I would put Snuggerud in there at this point. He's been excellent in this series. Buchnevich has had some great moments as well. That high-end talent is there for St. Louis, but that depth isn't. Not to the point of Winnipeg. And, like, honestly, I don't know who has that. And in basketball, we talk about how depth is a little bit overblown in the NBA playoffs. It ain't in the NHL playoffs. How many times have we seen, like, everyone goes for the big moves at the trade deadline, but the team that has the success is the one that shores up their depth? Now, the counterpoint to that is Colorado did it, and those guys aren't doing shit right now. But still, that third line can win you hockey games. And when you are trying to win 4 out of 7, having a third line that can win you 1 certainly makes life easier. And it just helped settle Winnipeg into this game in a really important way. They played an excellent hockey game throughout. They were so superior in this game. And then the problem. And it is funny because in the first couple of games, or the last couple of games, I guess, I have said, look, it's 12 goals, it's 2 games, it's 2 really bad losses. I don't think it's Hellebuck's fault entirely. Now, and then we got into some discussions about, like, maybe not every high danger chance needs to go in, but you can't blame him for any of those goals. And now they pick up a win, and they only give up 3, and 1 is in the final minute after they've iced the game away. And I actually had more of a problem with his game in this one than I did the other 2. Like, this performance on last night, Wednesday night, was more in line with what people, I think, the perception was of the last 2 games, if that makes sense. Like, I thought he actually played pretty well in the 2 games leading up to it. It was just he didn't make those key saves at key times. I thought in this game that they won, I thought he was putrid. That second goal, that just can't go in. And when you are a Winnipeg team that is already really fragile, you have some concerns about that. And so when you now feel like you can't make a mistake, that becomes really problematic. Like, this game, it's 5-3, 4-2, basically. You get an empty net goal, and then St. Louis gets one, like I said, after everything's been iced away. It shouldn't have been that close. Not even a little bit. Winnipeg completely controlled this hockey game. And so this was the one that I was like, man, Hellebuck, dude, like, I don't know, man. Like, that was a really, really bad performance on a night where, now, everyone around him stepped up and picked him up and got him there, but that was the one that was the most concerning to me from a Winnipeg standpoint. It wasn't the 2 games leading up to this one. That game, that was so bad. He almost cost them on a night where I thought they were soundly outplaying St. Louis. And so, look, there were a lot of problems in the 2 games leading up to it, where I thought St. Louis really outplayed Winnipeg, and then you're not getting the big saves at the big times, and so it all snowballs. But if Winnipeg is going to have to just whoop that ass to this extent in order to win games by 2, that's where you start to have a real problem between the pipes. So there is, I honestly, I came away from this one, even though they won, more concerned about Winnipeg than I was going into it. And that I was not necessarily anticipating. It is kind of funny though. Like, I, again, out here in Calgary, do a trivia night on Wednesday, so I wasn't able to watch this live. I get to, when I'm doing that, like, I kind of tune out from all the sports because I got this thing to focus on. And so I walked into Pazzi, where I do this downtown, and they got the games on the TV, and I see Winnipeg against St. Louis, and St. Louis is up 4-1. I was like, oh my god! Like, this is at home. This is a train wreck. And so start setting up, look up, and say, oh, this is a replay from the okay. So Sportsnet duped me a little bit on that, because I, like, in my head, because I know I got the podcast today, I'm like, that this is a complete collapse and utter failure. I don't think they've quit. I just think they're overwhelmed. Blah 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 blah. And then you look up, it's like, well, that's kind of a shitty whiteout. Oh, it's the last game. Okay, good. And actually, honestly, the only way I caught it was I looked over and they had the Montreal game on, and it said pregame coverage live now. It's like, boy, that. A little late for that, isn't it? If we're in the second. Oh, I see. So that's just me being weird. But on the St. Louis side, I think they really showed how far behind the Jets they really are here. Again, Winnipeg has not played well in the 2 previous games, but this is awfully similar to the LA-Edmonton series. When these 2 teams are playing at their best, there is no question who is the better team, and it is the one who resides in Central Canada. The Blues are just, like, forward group 1 through 4, blue line, all of it. Even when the goalies are playing at their best, that they're not close. They're just simply not close. Winnipeg is so much better than they are. And so maybe St. Louis is able to be the banana peel for the Jets now in the next 2, because we've seen Winnipeg doesn't exactly bounce back all that quickly. So if St. Louis can come out, get a good start on home ice like they did back in game 3, then they have a chance to again put the fear of God in the Jets because their goalie isn't giving them the confidence to be able to bounce back in that sort of a way. So again, I would just have some concerns if I was the Jets, but looking at it from a St. Louis Blues standpoint, I'm not saying, hey, no, we can bounce back because we're better than them. Say, hey, we can bounce back because they might get a little spooked here. That's basically what it comes down to. A reminder that if you need some fuel for watching the playoffs or hanging out on the stream or you're gaming, Swift Energy is a great spot for that. Check out swiftenergy.gg and use the code PKPrimetime to get that 25% off. The Washington Capitals close out the Montreal Canadiens in their Stanley Cup playoff series. And look, eventually it won out. Washington was just the better hockey team. I would love to provide some deep, thoughtful analysis on the rest of it. Washington was just greater than sign Montreal. That is what this came down to, in my opinion. They got some pushback. Montreal got a ton of shots early on. Thompson was able to hold up, but then eventually Washington just pulls away in this game, and they're able to ice it. It is difficult because it's a unique opponent in round one. It is a young team that is on their third string goalie who, good Lord, some of the saves that Dobish was making in that game to keep them relatively close was spectacular. And so kudos to him for stepping up in a really, really difficult spot and making a couple, again, we talk about key saves to try to keep their season alive. Bravo to him, for that one. But it's one where, like, you're getting ready now for the next round, and they'll play the Carolina Hurricanes in the next round. It is one where Montreal is not similar to Carolina, even a little bit, aside from the fact that they've had to use a backup goalie. And Montreal came into this one hot as hell, but also extremely young and inexperienced, and also bringing in a kid who had played like 2 games in the regular season before that and turned out to be awesome. So it's a unique setup. So looking at a potential Washington-Carolina matchup, not a whole lot of similarities in this one. But Washington goes out, they were the better hockey team, and they showed it. Montreal made it close in basically every one of these games, but Washington eventually does pull ahead. We're going to do more off-season stuff on some of these teams here in the next couple of weeks, but just for Montreal, they're going to learn from this. They really do have something special with this team, with Slavkovsky, who is absolutely, this was the word of the day a couple of days ago, Slavkovsky has leveled up. Any concerns about him after being the first overall pick and maybe taking some time to find his footing in the NHL, those are gone. This guy is really finding his legs, and honestly, I think there's another level that he can get to. That play he made to set up, I think it was Suzuki in front, where it's just a night, like, he is huge and has that long reach, and sometimes that can be difficult in tight spaces because you want, it's a lot to try to fold that in there, right? And he just, excellent use of the stick, just a little boop, gets the steal, quick pass out in front, quick one-timer chance, and it's just Thompson is one of the better goalies in the world. Not one of the 3 best in Canada, apparently, but one of the best goalies in the world, and he comes up with a big save when they need it. But Slavkovsky, Caulfield is awesome, Suzuki, and Demidov, good grief. Like, that is a top 4 that you can get really excited about. Slavkovsky, Caulfield, and Suzuki as a line itself are great. Demidov, Laine was kind of all over the place all season long. Like, they are not a finished product, but they have the foundation set now. This isn't a team that I think needs to take a step back next year or anything like that. They have that foundation set. It's a 5-game series, so, like, loses the series 4-1. It's tough to say, well, hey, it was close, but they really were in this one for a lot of it. And it was as playoffs as it gets, right? Like, you have a couple of fan bases that are insane and just fired up. The buildings are loud every night, and there's physicality, and there's roughs, and there's stuff after the whistle. And now there's a lot of heat and a lot of contention in this series with what Tom Wilson is running around and doing. And credit Montreal. Like, again, they're out in 5, so it's tough to say, well, they hung with them. But They did. They battled very effectively, and I think they did a great job of kind of hanging in a series that was quite the series to dip your toe into for the first playoff experience. That this wasn't dipping your toe into the water. This was getting thrown in and seeing if you could swim. And ultimately, they do lose, but I think they were able to keep their heads above in a very, very effective way. Moving to the stuff that we're going to be seeing tonight. The old ghosts are popping up for the Toronto Maple Leafs as they once again will try to put away the Ottawa Senators in game number 6. And look, there's a lot of conversations that have been happening around Toronto over the last little bit, and for obvious reasons, because everything that you were concerned about and every problem that the Leafs have had playoff-wise in the last forever weren't showing up in the first 2 games of this series, right? Like they were capitalizing on opportunities. They were scoring well on the power play. They were defending really effectively. Like everything that they kind of struggled with in playoffs past, they were able to erase those, even though it's against an Ottawa team that's kind of finding their legs a little bit. That all went away in the last game. Great opportunities, couldn't capitalize. Sounds familiar for this team, right? Power play chances, couldn't capitalize. Sounds kind of familiar, right? It's all the old ghosts that are popping back up in this particular one. And so, holy cow, like, it is weird for the team not facing elimination to have the most pressure on them going into a game. But my goodness, if Ottawa gets this one. And right, you can see, because you are now in Ottawa. It is now, like, you are on the home ice of the Sens. And now if you lose it, you have to come back to a very, very nervous, whatever they call Toronto's arena now. Scotiabank something, probably. There are, again, a lot of old things that are kind of popping up. And you could see Matthews talking to himself as that game went on when he has the great look and he ends up hitting the post. It's so that they need to come out tonight and just make a statement and just put Ottawa away. On the Sens side, I love the effort that they showed in Game 5. I have been a little bit critical of what they have done in the postseason so far. I hadn't aside from Brady Tkachuk, I really didn't like much of their games. Batherson's been around it too, but I didn't love much of their games. But everyone came out to play in that Game 5 with their season on the line. And while I've been more impressed with Montreal than I have been with Ottawa in this series, I still think that Ottawa now kind of found another level that they could get to. And I still think they have more that they can give. I still, like, Stützle has been quiet. Tkachuk has been really good. Batherson, I think, has been around it and just hasn't been able to kind of finish some of those chances. But I think Giroux has been quiet as well. Cousins gets his first. And, like, these are guys who you just kind of expect to have a little bit more. And I don't think they've even reached what the regular season capacity would be for them. So if they can find that next level tonight and really start to push this Toronto team, I think that there is going to be a lot of concern from a lot of different spots on social media, and certainly from the folks out in the biggest city in Canada. So look, again, obviously, the actual pressure is on Ottawa to not get eliminated from this game. But and there will be more time to have these discussions if it actually happens. But I talked about it on our video game stream yesterday. I genuinely have no idea what Toronto does if they blow this one. Like, at that point, it is like the Travis Scott Sage from the Elimination Chamber. That he did that at the Rogers Center. Now he needs to just go through the entire Air Canada Center and try to do that, because that would be just some kind of weird voodoo that you would never, ever want around your hockey club. But that's kind of what it is right now out in Leafland. Going to continue talking about the Stanley Cup playoffs, but a reminder that we do go live here on YouTube as well as Twitch and Kick. So make sure you hit that bell button on YouTube to get notified for when we are going live and when new videos are popping up, because there's a lot coming out here from Couch Potato Diary. The Edmonton Oilers have a chance to advance tonight as they take on the LA Kings. 8 o'clock Mountain Time start out here. And I have been critical of how Edmonton has played in this series. I cannot be critical of how they played in Game 5. They were so far ahead of where the Kings were. And the big thing, like, this was a, relatively speaking, quiet game for McDavid and Draisaitl. It was the role guys stepping up. It's Kane getting the goal. It's Brown getting a good opportunity. It's Frederick getting a good look. It's Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Hyman kind of creating a little bit. And I will say, I do like the kind of pivot that Edmonton has made, because a lot of the time when they go with the hero line, when they go with Draisaitl and McDavid, it's Hyman with them. I do like that they have kind of backed off Hyman a little bit, put Perry up there, who is still serviceable, right? And for what McDavid and Draisaitl need him to do, which is just kind of get in the way a little bit, and maybe a puck will bounce in off of you, he is exactly what they need. And then you put Hyman with Nugent Hopkins, and while that is not a marriage that has always worked, I think it did for them against the Kings in that last game. So I do like how they have kind of pivoted with that a little bit. And if they can get more from those role guys, because that's where I thought LA would have them, especially on home ice. Like, okay, we can put Kopitar against McDavid and Draisaitl, and at least, like, maybe not cancel it out, but at least hold that to only a, like, -1, and then the rest of our depth guys are just going to kill them. And that was not the case. Edmonton's depth ends up winning out. If that's going to happen, I don't know how the Kings win this one. I really don't. They need to get off to a better start. And, again, they were the better team in the first 4 games, in the parts of those games where they were trying. They just took their foot off the gas. And in this game, in game 5, it just didn't seem like they were ready. And I made the joke on the video game stream that it kind of felt like they were the team that just kind of saw, okay, well, look, we got off to a great start in these last games, and it didn't really help us, so let's just pace it a little bit. And then it's like a boxer who says, I'm just going to pace it, and then they end up taking rounds off and just getting bludgeoned a little bit. They're down 16-4 in the shots before they get a power play opportunity, and Kuzmenko is able to get the deflection out in front. But after that, like, they had some chances, especially late. Fiala gets a couple of looks, but overall, they kind of got dummied in that game. And this looked like the LA team from past years. Like, they looked a step behind the Oilers. And so if there is a real chance that they have just let the Oilers into this series and handed it to them, basically, and didn't take advantage of the times where they had control of this. So very interested to see what happens with them tonight. And honestly, again, we'll have time to talk about off-season stuff in a little bit. But if this doesn't go well tonight, again, what do you do if you're Los Angeles? Because this team was a juggernaut in the back part of the season. We talked about all the different stats, outscoring everyone to high holy hell, and basically winning every game there was. So I think when you look at the Kings, if this is a 4th straight loss to the Oilers, you start to get, okay, like, what do we do? Like, do we just have to start over? And I would caution against that, because I do really like a lot of the talent they have on this team, but there would be, I mean, you would feel like you would have to make a substantial move. And I don't know what that is. And it's what we've talked about I guess a couple of weeks ago now. When teams get into desperation mode, bad moves start to happen. And so, well, we need a big move, so let's do this. Okay, was that a good move? Don't know, but it's a big one, and it's what we needed. So let's roll with that. So I think that this is a very important next 12 hours for the Los Angeles Kings and how they handle everything. Very interested to see how they respond going up against the Oilers coming up later on tonight. One more thing from the hockey world. And it is something I kind of been thinking about for the last little bit. One could say that it is even something that has been on my mind. So going to pivot here a little bit and just share one thing about the NHL and the postseason that has really been frustrating me lately. Look, the Stanley Cup Playoffs are the best time of year for hockey fans, and I would suggest that no playoffs do it as well as the Stanley Cup Playoffs. There is just something about the passion, the intensity, and everything that goes into it that makes it one of a kind. It is a different sport, it really feels like. And while every other sport does ramp things up when it gets to the playoffs, there is absolutely nothing like playoff hockey when it is at its best. I do have a problem, though, with how the NHL has set it up at this point. Look, that 1 through 8, I think, was a perfect system, quite frankly. You reward your teams at the top by taking on teams at the bottom of the playoff structure, right? Like, that just, to me and my brain, that makes sense. And so then they change it, which is, there are times where you need to be proactive instead of reactive, right? But the playoffs were this perfect thing that we all greatly loved and appreciated. And it created some amazing moments. And I couldn't imagine watching the Stanley Cup playoffs and thinking, you know what? This needs to be tweaked a little bit. And it was one of the mistakes that leagues make a lot. It was for the sake of rivalries. And now, if you're a longer standing hockey fan, you will know the NHL has been trying to shoehorn rivalry into things for a bit. Remember rivalry night on, what was it? I don't think it was just NBC, because that was hockey something in America or whatever, but maybe it was the NBC games, but it was rivalry game. And so because of that, you just got basically original 6 American teams cycling through that spot all the time. That was essentially it. And then featuring Crosby and Ovechkin as well. And then you would get, oh man, it's rivalry night. Washington, Minnesota. Like, what? What are we doing? I don't know, but we're marketing as rivalry night so people get interested in it. They have, for a long time, really romanticized this thought of the rivalries, because we've had some great ones in the past, right? Montreal, Toronto, a tale as old as time, right? And then Ottawa gets thrown into the mix. And then for a little bit, we get Toronto and Ottawa. And oh man, what a rivalry that was. And then we get Pittsburgh and Philadelphia in this kind of iteration, right? With Sidney Crosby battling up against this violent juggernaut that is giving them all these problems and really being just mean to this guy. But then, like in the past too, Edmonton against Calgary. Oh, what a rivalry that was. Even Edmonton against the Islanders, when they're kind of switching eras back and forth a little bit, right? Like we had all of those rivalries. And admittedly, rivalries are built in the playoffs. And it was easier to have those rivalries and see everyone all the time when there was 6, 12, 21 teams. And you kind of had no choice. There were but so many teams to face at one particular time. And so the NHL, I think, saw that as like, well, what if we basically just limited the field down to 6 to 8, potentially? And so they make this new format where you now play teams in your division in the first part of it. And we have kind of, again, forced this rivalry thing. And when leagues start to step in to try to create something that should happen organically, it almost never goes well. And the example I would use is Major League Baseball. Think back to like for those who are around my age, but like that the Boston Red Sox and the Idiots, and they have a really good documentary series on the Red Sox comeback in '04 that leads to that World Series, and that stretch leading up to it is some of the best baseball you'll see, where it's Yankees Red Sox. Yeah, the games take 4.5 hours, but there is drama in every last second of it, and it is just this absolute battle all the time between these two teams, and it is just the two of the best, and they're going at it, and the hatred is building each time to the point where Pedro Martinez is throwing senior citizens to the ground, and this Karim Garcia, all these different things, and the Yankees are my daddy, all of it builds up into this phenomenal crescendo where first Boone hits the home run off of Wakefield to send the Yankees to the World Series, and then the next year it is Dave Roberts with the steals and Ortiz with 1,900 big hits, and it's classic moments that you'll remember forever. And so baseball saw that, and every time the Yankees and Red Sox played, it seemed like it was a weekend, and it followed local coverage on Friday, Fox Saturday Baseball Saturday, ESPN Sunday. People couldn't get enough of it. And so baseball took that and was like, well, if people can't get enough of it, let's give them more. And they changed the schedule so that we then got 18 Yankee Red Sox games a year. You know what became less important after that? Yankee Red Sox games. Because you would see them, it's like, okay, April, I'll catch it later. And so you had this thing that felt important, and this thing that happened organically with these two top teams just battling it out in front offices and then on the field to face each other. And then you stuck them together 18 times and it didn't feel special anymore. And I'm worried that's what we're getting now with this playoff format, where you are trying to force rivalries. And I think it is... Honestly, it's a little bit of old WWE booking where, okay, what's the best way to get a rivalry? Let's just have these guys face each other a bunch. What's the story? They're facing each other a bunch. It's like, that's not... Storylines can come out of that, sure. And we got that with Washington-Montreal. That is now probably going to be a rivalry for a bit, given some of the animosity that came out of that series. And there's a little bit of history going back to Montreal stealing the show against Washington when the Habs were an 8 seed. But again, that happened organically. Florida-Tampa Bay should be almost the pinnacle of rivalries in sports right now, in the NHL anyway, because of Tampa Bay's history for so long controlling that area, winning cup after cup after cup, and now Florida gets the good fortune that Matthew Tkachuk wanted out of Calgary, and wants to go to Florida. So they make the move, they bring in Matthew Tkachuk, and now this team is on the rise. First as a cup contender, then as a Stanley Cup champion. And now they are in this heated battle with Tampa Bay, who is now trying to counter this upstart team that they have controlled for so long. And it has been this clashing of whatever. Except Florida's quite a bit better now at this point. And so instead of this great rivalry that, oh man, this feels special, I'm good. We've got it a couple of times. I'm good. I'm good on it. Same thing like Edmonton against LA. They have played, this is the 4th playoff series in a row that they are playing each other. When Edmonton plays LA next season in the regular season in November, is anybody going to give two shits? Don't think so. So that you have got it a lot, which makes it noteworthy, I suppose, but that doesn't make it a rivalry. And so I feel like the NHL, in trying to create this thing that when it happens organically, it's amazing. When they try to do it, it just feels overdone and lame. And it takes away from a bit of the fun that can be the playoffs, right? Where you would have, it does let you set up a bracket too, which I guess. That part, I'm going to get to that in a second. I'm taking a lot of side streets here. But when you have this whole thing set up, and it was so great because you would have like this run in 04 that the Flames went on. And I know I'm referencing that era of sports a lot today, but that run the Flames went on in 04 where they beat the Canucks in the first round. It now feels like it is a gauntlet because they are the lowest seed. So now they have to play the number 1 team in the land, the Detroit Red Wings, in the next round. And so again, instead of rewarding the top teams in the league for being the top teams, Winnipeg, as the President's Trophy winner, if they get through the first round, their matchup in the next round is either Dallas or Colorado. Either a Dallas team that is playing phenomenal hockey right now, or a Colorado team that's got their captain back for the first time in 3 years and has some of the best center depth in the history of the sport. So, hey, congratulations, but please, let's keep shitting on teams for doing well in the regular season and making fun of the President's Trophy winners as if that's a thing. No, there's been a lot of times that's been screwed up, and it was screwed up before in the old system, I will grant you. But the reward for doing great in the regular season shouldn't be that you now have to play, in theory, 2 teams that you are very familiar with because you're in the same division, so you have to play them a lot. I think that it really changes the reward structure in the NHL. I think that it really tries to force something that used to be just so much fun with all of that. Also, spare me the bracket thing. Like, oh, well, everyone just likes to, they want it to be like March Madness where you can just fill out a bracket and go. If March Madness was 3 rounds, no one would fill out a bracket. It's only fun because the thing is comically large and you just get to fill it, St. Bonaventure or whatever, and you get to put that in. So, okay. Also, I would just like to state, for the record, very few are doing it by hand anymore. And maybe there are still some, and it's still kind of fun. And honestly, I do it by hand first, and then fill in all the things after. But I do think that if you are of the psycho variety where you are doing a bracket by hand, I think you can figure out that, okay, I think this team's going to win here. These are the teams that I have winning, and now we're reseeding. So which number is the highest? Which number is the lowest? Those 2 teams face each other. Like, I think people could figure that out. So every reason that the NHL would have for making this, you can kind of poke holes in it a little bit, and I think we are starting to see the flaws of that starting to find their way through in these postseasons. Again, the action's been great, and it has been a lot of fun, but I just think that this is a flawed system, and the playoffs are fun in spite of it, not because of it. So that is the story from the National Hockey League. Again, all the NHL stuff is all in one spot on the Couch Potato Diary YouTube channel. Just look up the hockey playlist. If you're watching this after, it's going to be in there. So check it out. But yeah, if you I know we cover a lot of sports on this show. If you're just here for the hockey, thank you. There is just a hockey playlist. You can check out all the hockey breakdowns there. Or if you are here looking for wrestling or UFC or basketball or whatever, and it's, this guy's talking about 2004 baseball while we're talking about hockey playoffs. Screw this guy. All the different sports broken up into the playlists that you would want over on the YouTube channel.